Hey, I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. Welcome back to another installment of the Summer of Free 2022. I'm aiming to be your ally here as you endeavor to manage your finances in a God-honoring way, and I'm doing that by bringing you suggestions of some free geek entertainment. In each installment this year, I'm recommending 3 geek movies or TV shows. It's turning out to be all TV or all movies so far. This time is no different, and in fact, this time all 3 movies are found at tubitv.com, tubitv.com. The first one is the movie Life. The synopsis on IMDb reads, 6 astronauts aboard the space station study a sample collected from Mars that could provide evidence for extraterrestrial life on the red planet. The crew determines that the sample contains a large, single-celled organism, the first example of life beyond Earth. But things aren't always what they seem as the crew begins to conduct research and their methods end up having unintended consequences. The life form proves more intelligent than anyone ever expected. So it's a formula, it's a structure that's going to seem, I think, pretty familiar to a lot of horror fans, space horror fans maybe specifically, but man, that didn't lessen my enjoyment of it at all. You can watch my review of it. It's one of my favorite movies of 2017. I was on the edge of my seat the entire movie, just in suspense, either in actually intense moments where things are frenetic and going crazy, or just waiting for those moments to happen, even during the quieter character moments, which I appreciated being included in the movie. It's got invasive body horror that's really unsettling. Ryan Reynolds does great in this movie, I think, with the dramatic side of things, with horror acting, fear and terror and that kind of stuff. I think Ryan Reynolds is known for his comedy so much that people may often do not realize how strong he is dramatically in some other ways. So that's actually my preferred way. I don't think that he's particularly funny in when he's leaning into that, but I really like him in these more intense kinds of roles. I think the alien design here is really cool. The weightlessness effects, they're weightless through most of the movie, and so there's some neat things going on in terms of the visual production of this thing that I really appreciated. Again, one of my favorites of 2017. You can see my review. It's rated R for language throughout, some violence, some sci-fi violence, and terror. All right, next up, as I work out some lunch that's still been left behind in my mouth, Brightburn. 2 out of 3 of these movies this time are horror movies. The synopsis on IMDb says, what if a child from another world crash-landed on Earth, but instead of becoming a hero to mankind, he proved to be something far more sinister? So Brightburn is definitely riffing on Superman, but not just Superman. It specifically, in some ways, is riffing on Man of Steel. You can see shots of the Briar Farm, I almost want to say Kent Farm, and like little piano motifs and stuff that are clearly being pulled directly from Man of Steel, and I love it. Partly because I love Man of Steel, but it's just great to see that we're in this time where the superhero genre itself can have so many different tones and then also be twisted on its head and turned into a horror experience. And this is definitely a full-on horror movie, despite it being based on an alternate version of the Superman mythos. There's, the effects are less frequent than Man of Steel because it's a horror movie, and so we're seeing things many times from the victim's point of view, and they're hiding the monster, as they do when they film horror movies, to maintain suspense and fear of the unknown. So, but when they are front and center, they look, great to me, certainly solid. And not only is it a full-on horror movie, but it also is a family drama. I mean, they're paralleling in this movie, as I talk about more extensively in my review, what a lot of parents experience as their kids get older, reach that tween age, and hormones start kicking in. They become maybe a little bit more distant from their parents, a little less trusting of their parents, and there can be this relational gap that starts to widen between parents and their kids as these kids are growing up and kind of turning into different people, acting different than they normally act. And as parents, you're trying to figure out, how do I love this child through this? And so it parallels that in some really interesting ways. So it's rated R for horror, violence, bloody images, and language. Finally, Somewhere in Time, not a horror movie, but also has some connection to Superman, with Christopher Reeve in the starring role. This, according to the IMDb synopsis, is about a Chicago playwright who uses self-hypnosis to travel back in time and meet the actress whose vintage portrait hangs in a grand hotel. Now, this should not be thought of, even though it's a time travel movie, as science fiction. It's very much science fantasy or even fantasy, because it's kind of like assuming that a person, if they, use the power of their mind and will themselves enough, they can actually achieve all kinds of crazy things, and in this case, time travel. So in order to, experience this movie, you kind of have to buy into that, and so I think it's better appreciated as a fantasy, in that kind of fantasy mode. This is a classic fantasy romance. Christopher Reeve in this movie, I think, shows why he is so much more than Superman and Clark Kent. He is very versatile. He has some really great emotional access. There's great tragedy in this story, in addition to the sweetness of the romance. There's heavy drama in another sense. And so I was kind of haunted by this movie after watching it for the first time. But if you need to find like maybe a compromise movie to watch with someone who's not a geek like you, but maybe would be into romance, or if you yourself are a geek that is, into and can appreciate romance, this is an absolute classic with a passionate cult following, and I think is really easily worth giving an evening to. And it's rated PG. I couldn't find on IMDb what it was rated PG specifically for, but PG, pretty tame, certainly compared to most anything you're going to find today. And that's it for these recommendations. I'm going to be back in a few weeks with one more set of Summer of Free Entertainment suggestions. So in the meantime, be sure to subscribe, click the bell to stay connected, or keep listening to the Christian Geek Central podcast. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Do you believe in the supernatural?
Download the Legacy Edition of Spirit Blade, a full past audio drama, for free at spiritblade.com.